on page 12, Israel welcomes individual tourists back into the country. And it's perfect because Rabbi Drew was able to escape to Israel this summer with his entire family. I guess you had a short notice. So give us the background.
How did you get in during that?
Okay, so there's, first of all, I mean, I'm happy to talk about the article itself because I have my... Yes, but when we applied, so we initially had got tickets for the entire family for us to go, but when we realized the limitations, we could only take half of our kids, which we weren't going to do. So we got which we just put those tickets off, and we got separate tickets for my wife, me, and our 12-year-old daughter who had been vaccinated. And at the time, so my mother-in-law, maybe in June, July, went and visited, and she followed a certain application process that if you have, at the time in the summer, it was either group trips, which I think the minimum was like 5 for a group trip.
Okay, so like they're still allowing like
group trips,
like a congregation
exactly
from Dubuque, Iowa, or Los Angeles. The whole, because that's that's tourism dollars. That's a lot. That's a lot of money.
That's a huge industry for sure. And then first degree relatives. So not second, not third, only first degree relatives. So fortunately, my wife had a brother there. And so my mother-in-law went in June, July. She followed one application process, sent it to the consulate in Chicago by email. So we figured, okay, we're going early August. We'll do that in July. So we sent it off. Heard nothing for like a week. So we decided, let's try the New York consulate. So we get an auto responding saying, oh, you have to go to our website. We've changed the procedures and it's no longer handled by this ministry. It's actually now handled by the Ministry of the Interior. We've changed our COVID procedures for even allowed to come into the country.
Right.
So then we applied and then we kept following up and heard nothing. Ultimately what happened, so we were going to go, let's say on Wednesday or Thursday, and by Sunday, we started just reaching out on Facebook to friends. And ultimately, I'm going to spare you the details, but it was just one of those who you know things that someone was able to put us in touch with someone else who was able to expedite it or whatever. And also, at the same time, my wife's brother was pestering people also in the Ministry of the Interior to get things moving on. It was a really frustrating process, and we only knew a few days in advance that we'd even be permitted to go. So I'm very glad that they've dispensed with that entire process because that's really annoying.
Well, it's stressful.
It's also stressful. We didn't know. We weren't packed days in advance.
Wednesday, you're going to leave. If it's on Sunday and you're leaving on Wednesday, you don't even know if you're leaving on Wednesday.
Right.
Every I got to go to the bank. I got to get traveler's checks. I got to shut down the mail. I got to do this. I got to do that. All this.
Actually,
kids have got to go. You got all this kind of stuff to deal with.
On top of all that, so actually we had Thursday morning tickets out of Chicago. So we decided we'd leave Wednesday, get a hotel in Chicago Wednesday night, and then Tuesday morning, we hear this news out of Israel that if you arrive that Friday or later from certain countries, America included, that you would have to have a 7-day quarantine, even if you're vaccinated, 14-day non-vax, but now a 7-day, because of the rise of Delta. We said, wait a second, we're only going to be there for 6 days, and we arrive that day. So I get on the phone. I have to wait 50 plus minutes to talk with the airline, and it costs money to change it. So we moved it a day up. So that means we'd now be leaving Wednesday morning, and we'd have to leave this is Tuesday morning. We'd have to leave Tuesday evening to go to Chicago to fly out the next morning. The punchline, of course, is at the end of all this is that we ultimately, after I changed the flight there, they decided after all this international pressure, they moved it off to the next Wednesday. But you know what? We got an extra day in Israel, so it all worked out. But the whole process was crazy. It was annoying. Okay, with all of that having been said, for me, one of the really cool things about this is also dispensing with the serological test. So that, I think, was really annoying because in addition, this does mention you still have to get that PCR when you deplane in Ben Gurion, which is fine. But
is that the one where you swab your nose and then you do the little thingy with the?
No, that's the PCR is the longer one.
Yeah, the PCR is the longer one, and we had to wait. I don't know how many. We knew already by the next morning that we were negative.
Fine.
We were fine. But the serological test is you have to go to a separate medical center somewhere, get your blood drawn for antibodies or whatever it was.
Right.
And for those of us who don't like needles, that was not pleasant.
You don't like,
my body doesn't do well.
So when you're about to get the needle or the shot, you just you look the other way and you go, ah, and you scream out loud, get it out of your system. Then they do the shot. Doesn't hurt a bit.
I wish it were that easy. Anyway, so it was still annoying that we had to find this place that was off-site, place that I never would have gone to otherwise, and then you still have to wait. And also, you had to get permission from the Ministry of Health. It's a totally separate Ministry of Health, with a letter saying you are now free to move about the country, which this is so much better, according to this article, that now you just need that negative PCR test and you're good to go.
I think Israel opened up November 1, and then America opened up November 8th, which is November 8th was Monday. Today's the 10th, so Monday.
Yeah. So this will be a lot better for anybody going to Israel.
So then you did a tour. You went around. I know you went to breweries and all kinds of places because I listened to your podcast, and you had a really one that was cute. You were at the beer
It's called Bir Atenu. So it technically means our beer, but it's also play on words because in the Book of Esther it talks about the capital there as being the Birah. And so it's in Jerusalem, so it's a play on words that it's our Jerusalem, it's our capital, right? And it's our beer.
Capital of beer.
Yeah, so they like to see themselves as the sort of the Jerusalem center of beer.
You saw some other things in Israel, and you traveled about. So you were there only for 7 days.
Not even. We were like
really
6 days.
It's really hard to do Israel. You need like 2 weeks. I think.
So what we did, it was very simple. We spent the weekend with my wife's brother's family. It was nice to hang out with them. Then we spent a few days in Jerusalem, which mostly just hanging out with friends and seeing some stuff. It was really more casual, but connecting with people. So, and hopefully we'll have a longer trip when we actually have all of our kids. We just felt bad leaving for more than a week with taking only our oldest one.
Yeah.
So,
And then, as far as that goes, what did you see? What was it different during the pandemic versus what you normally would see going on? Did it seem like less people because there was?
The strangest thing was in Jerusalem, just hearing a bunch of Hebrew. Because normally, especially in August, I'm used to hearing not only English, but French and all sorts of languages. And here it was, one thing that we did visit, we've never been to before, was the city of David. That was really neat. All their different archaeological, Ir David, all their archaeological excavations is really fascinating stuff. Stuff going back to the second and even first temple times, really fascinating. And while we were there, again, we heard lots of Hebrew, which tour groups in Hebrew. And apparently what's been going on is the country's really been, Israelis like to travel. Yeah. And also they really have a tourism industry that doesn't have a lot of tourists, as we see in this article. It talks about the numbers. So they've been encouraging people from all sorts of different parts of Israel to go visit other parts of Israel. You live in the north, come visit Jerusalem. You're in one part, go to Tel Aviv, whatever it is, and go check out other places. So it was really fascinating to see these groups from other parts of Israel.